The security camera footage played on the laptop screen with crystal clarity. A blonde woman in a crisp beige pantsuit marching up to the front door, hands on her hips as she surveyed the 3 Amazon packages stacked neatly beside the welcome mat. Her French manicured finger jabbed at the doorbell once, twice, a third time with increasing force. When no one answered, she pulled out her phone, snapped several photos of the packages, then, shocking even herself with her boldness, she bent down, gathered all 3 boxes into her arms, and marched away. Karen Westfield had no idea that her impulsive decision to temporarily confiscate her neighbor's packages would spiral into the most chaotic month of her life. Exactly 17 minutes later, as Karen was preparing to draft a strongly worded email about package eyesores violating Section 7.3 of the HOA bylaws, her phone rang. It was her husband, Officer Dale Westfield. "Honey, did you take someone's packages from 427 Maple Drive?" Dale's voice had that professional flatness he used when he was trying to keep calm. "I simply removed the visual blight from our neighborhood," Karen replied, positioning a tea bag in her favorite Live, Laugh, Love mug. "Those boxes have been sitting there for nearly 6 hours. It's my duty as HOA president to maintain our property values." "Karen, the homeowner has a doorbell camera. They've filed a police report with video evidence." The tea bag slipped from Karen's fingers, landing with a wet plop on her pristine white countertop. That's ridiculous. I was going to return them. I'm doing my job." "Your job isn't taking other people's property," Dale sighed. "This is serious. Theft is theft, even if you're planning to give it back." "It is not theft. It's temporary relocation for neighborhood beautification purposes. The homeowner is Dr. Samira Chen, the new neurologist at County General. She's already sent the footage to my captain." "Karen, I'm being sent to investigate my own wife." Karen's chest tightened. "Dr. Chen, the woman who moved in 3 months ago and immediately requested exemption from the HOA mandated lawn height requirement to create a pollinator-friendly native garden. The woman who refused to attend a single HOA meeting. The woman whose modern porch lights clashed with the subdivision's prescribed colonial-style fixtures." "This is obviously a misunderstanding," Karen said, straightening her posture. "I'll simply explain to her that as HOA president." "No," Dale interrupted. "Don't contact her. Don't go near her house. I'm coming home now to pick up the packages and return them. And Karen, my captain wants to speak with you tomorrow morning." As Dale hung up, Karen looked at the 3 innocent-looking brown boxes sitting on her dining room table. One was notably heavy, perhaps medical equipment. The second was book-shaped. But it was the third package that made her stomach drop. It was clearly marked Security Camera System -4K Ultra HD. Dr. Chen wasn't just reporting today's incident. She was fortifying her home against Karen's authority. This was nothing less than a declaration of war against everything Karen had worked so hard to build and control. And Karen Westfield had never backed down from a fight in her life, especially now the homeowner who clearly had no respect for the rules. The following morning, Karen sat rigidly across from Captain Phillips, her cream-colored blazer buttoned despite the stuffiness of the small office. Her lawyer, a college friend named Melissa who mostly handled real estate closings, fidgeted nervously beside her. "Mrs. Westfield, while Dr. Chen has agreed not to press charges at this time," Captain Phillips said, his weathered face expressionless, "she has filed for a no-contact order." "A what?" Karen's voice rose an octave. "That's absurd. I live 3 houses down from her." "Which is precisely why she's concerned," he replied, sliding a document across the desk. "The order prohibits you from approaching her property, contacting her through any means, or discussing her at HOA meetings." Karen's face flushed. "That's impossible. How am I supposed to enforce community standards if I can't even mention violations?" Melissa touched Karen's arm gently. "We should consider ourselves lucky, Karen. Package theft could have meant criminal charges." "It wasn't theft," Karen hissed, then composed herself. "Captain Phillips, my husband has been on the force for 15 years. Surely you understand that I was acting in the community's best interest. Mrs. Westfield, your husband's exemplary service is precisely why we're handling this diplomatically. But make no mistake," he leaned forward, "if you violate this order, we will have no choice but to proceed with charges." After leaving the station, Karen sat in her pristine white SUV, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles matched its color. The humiliation burned worse than the time the board voted against her proposed ban on wind chimes. A no-contact order, like she was some kind of criminal, all for upholding standards. "She won't win this," Karen whispered to herself, starting the engine. "Not in my neighborhood." That afternoon, Karen called an emergency HOA board meeting in her meticulously decorated living room. The 5 other board members listened with varying degrees of discomfort as she explained the situation, carefully omitting the package incident and framing it as a concerning resistance to community standards. We have a legal obligation to maintain property values, Karen insisted, passing around photos of Dr. Chen's lawn. Native plants, she means weeds, deliberately grown weeds. Walter Jenkins, a retired accountant, adjusted his glasses. Karen, that garden actually looks quite nice. My wife says it's attracted butterflies she hasn't seen in years. Butterflies don't pay mortgages, Walter, Karen snapped. Rita, back me up here. Rita Chen, no relation to Dr. Chen, shifted uncomfortably. Karen, I think we should tread carefully. Dr. Chen has already installed 6 security cameras. Perhaps we could just... 6? Karen interrupted, her eyebrows shooting up. She had 2 yesterday. The room fell silent as everyone realized the implication of Karen's knowledge. I mean, that's what Dale told me, she quickly amended. The point is, we need to show a united front. I propose we issue violation notices for the garden, the non-regulation porch lights, and she thought quickly, excessive security equipment visible from the street. No one raised their hand in support. Are you serious? Karen looked around the room. After everything I've done for this neighborhood. Karen, Rita said gently, perhaps it's time for you to step back from this particular situation. Let someone else handle Dr. Chen's property. A cold realization washed over Karen. They were afraid. Afraid of the doctor with her cameras and legal threats. Worse, they were abandoning Karen when she needed them most. Fine, she said, straightening her papers. If the board won't act, I'll handle this myself. As the others exchanged worried glances, Karen was already formulating her next move. If direct confrontation wouldn't work, she'd simply need to be more creative. After all, there was more than one way to enforce neighborhood harmony. By Saturday morning, Karen had transformed her dining room into a war room. Spreadsheets detailing every HOA bylaw covered one wall, with photos of Dr. Chen's property on another. Her laptop displayed a carefully crafted email to the entire neighborhood, excluding Dr. Chen, of course, announcing a community beautification contest, with suspiciously specific criteria that would highlight the doctor's nonconformity. You're playing with fire, Dale warned, pouring himself coffee before his shift. That no-contact order includes proxy harassment. It's a community event, Dale, Karen replied without looking up. I'm not even mentioning her. Dale set his mug down harder than necessary. Karen, you need to let this go. I've never seen you like this before. You've never seen me lose before, she muttered, hitting send on the email with a decisive click. After Dale left, Karen drove to the hardware store in the next town over, purchasing bright yellow yard signs that read, Proud PRTSIPent, Maple Creek Beautification Contest. She distributed them to every yard on the street, skipping Dr. Chen's naturally, creating a visible boundary that highlighted the doctor's exclusion. By Sunday evening, a peculiar thing happened. 3 neighbors removed their signs. By Monday morning, 5 more were gone. Karen was inspecting this betrayal when she spotted Dr. Chen chatting amicably with elderly Mrs. Peterson at the edge of their adjoining properties. Mrs. Peterson, who had always supported Karen's strictest bylaws, was nodding enthusiastically as she admired something in the doctor's yard. Karen circled the block and parked where she could observe without technically violating the no-contact order. Through her binoculars, she watched in horror as Mrs. Peterson accepted a small potted plant from Dr. Chen, a convert to the native plant rebellion. That evening, an email circulated through the neighborhood, not from Karen, but from Dr. Chen herself. It was gracious, warm, and explained her native garden as a pollinator highway that would benefit everyone's traditional gardens. She invited neighbors to a weekend workshop about native plants, emphasizing the reduced water costs and maintenance. The email concluded with a friendly offer to share plant cuttings and homemade honey from her own beehives. Beehives. Karen frantically searched the HOA bylaws. How had she missed beehives? Her phone pinged with texts from board members. Was Dr. Chen allowed to keep bees? Was the workshop approved? Most alarmingly, would Karen be attending? Karen paced her kitchen, fuming. The doctor was building a coalition, positioning Karen as the unreasonable one. This called for decisive action. At dawn, Karen donned black yoga pants and a dark hoodie. She crept to the community bulletin board, technically neutral territory, and posted a flyer detailing the health hazards of beekeeping in residential areas, complete with frightening close-up photos of bee stings. She signed it, a concerned neighbor, and hurried home, feeling the rush of righteous vigilance. By noon, her triumph collapsed. The community Facebook page exploded with a video of her putting up the flyer captured by the newly installed community security camera. A donation from Dr. Chen to enhance neighborhood safety. Worse, a real beekeeper had commented with accurate information about domestic honeybees, making Karen's warnings seem hysterical. As reactions poured in, laughing emojis, concerned comments, and calls for a special HOA meeting, Karen realized she'd severely miscalculated. She wasn't just fighting Dr. Chen anymore. She was fighting the entire neighborhood. And for the first time in 7 years as HOA president, Karen Westfield felt the distinct chill of her authority crumbling. An emergency board meeting without the board president? That's unconstitutional. Karen's voice echoed through her empty house as she slammed down her phone. Rita had just informed her that the HOA board was meeting at Walter's house without her to discuss recent community tensions. Karen's fingers trembled as she poured herself a glass of Chardonnay. Since the bulletin board incident 3 days ago, her carefully cultivated world had begun collapsing with alarming speed. 4 violation reports she filed had been dismissed by the board. Neighbors who used to text her about wayward garbage bins now averted their eyes when she power walked past their driveways. Worst of all, Dale had started taking overtime shifts, coming home only to sleep. The doorbell rang, startling Karen so badly she sloshed wine onto her silk blouse. She opened the door to find Mrs. Peterson, 83 years old and wielding a potted plant like a weapon. From Samara, Mrs. Peterson announced, thrusting the pot into Karen's hands. "Lavender. Good for stress," she says. "Heaven knows you need it." Karen stared at the fragrant plant. "You know I can't have contact with Dr. Chen. That includes accepting gifts." Mrs. Peterson waved a dismissive hand. "It's from me. And it's time to end this nonsense, Karen. Samara is organizing a block party next month. The whole neighborhood's excited." "A block party?" Karen's grip tightened on the pot. "Those require board approval." "Oh, they got it. Just came from Walter's. Unanimous vote." Mrs. Peterson peered over her glasses. "You know, dear, I've lived here 30 years. Seen 6 HOA presidents come and go. The good ones knew when to enforce rules and when to build community." After Mrs. Peterson left, Karen set the lavender on her kitchen counter and opened her laptop. The neighborhood email thread about the block party already had 27 enthusiastic responses. People were offering to bring food, set up games, provide music. Dr. Chen had suggested the perfect date. The same weekend, Karen had been planning to announce her campaign for an unprecedented 8th term as president. When Dale came home at midnight, he found Karen surrounded by HOA membership lists, property records, and social media printouts. "What's all this?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Research," Karen replied without looking up. "Did you know Dr. Chen completed her residency at Johns Hopkins, or that she volunteers at the free clinic downtown?" The woman's positioned herself as a community savior. Dale sighed heavily. "Karen, this has to stop. My captain pulled me aside today. If you violate that no-contact order, he can't protect you anymore." "I haven't violated anything." "You were filmed putting up that beef flyer. On community property. That's not contact." Dale sat down across from her, his face etched with concern. "Listen to me. Before Dr. Chen, you were respected. Firm but fair. The neighborhood appreciated your standards. But this vendetta," he gestured at her research. "This isn't you, Karen." His words stung worse than she expected. "So you're taking her side too?" "There shouldn't be sides," Dale said quietly. "We're neighbors." After he went upstairs, Karen sat in the dim kitchen, the lavender plant's scent filling the silence. Dale's words echoed in her mind. "This isn't you." But wasn't it? Hadn't she always been the enforcer, the standard bearer? Without that role, who was she? Her phone buzzed with a text from Rita. "Board voted 5-0 to suspend all violation enforcements until after block party. Please don't make this worse." Karen stared at the message, a cold realization settling in her stomach. They weren't just ignoring her authority, they were actively dismantling it. And somewhere in the dark corners of her mind, a small voice whispered that perhaps she deserved it. Karen stood in her closet the following morning, surveying her collection of blazers, color-coded from lightest cream to deepest navy. She selected a power red one, perfect for the confrontation ahead. The Maple Creek HOA bylaws clearly stated that suspension of enforcement required a 2/3 majority vote of all 48 homeowners, not just the board. She had the law on her side. She would not be silenced. Karen marched down Maple Drive with a stack of printed bylaws, determined to rally support. Her first stop was the Johnsons, who had always appreciated her vigilance about trash can placement. Mr. Johnson opened his door with a grimace. "Karen, this isn't a good time." "This will just take a moment, Doug," Karen said, thrusting a document toward him. "The board has overstepped its authority, and as homeowners we need tow." "Actually, we're heading out," he interrupted, glancing uncomfortably over her shoulder. "We're helping Dr. Chen set up a little free library at the park." Karen blinked. "A what?" "A book exchange box. The kids are decorating it. It's her son's Eagle Scout project." Son. Karen had never seen a child at Dr. Chen's house. She doesn't have children. Mr. Johnson's expression shifted. "Her son lives with his dad most of the time. Joint custody since the divorce. He's visiting for the summer." He hesitated. "Karen, did you even know she was a single mom?" The question hit Karen like a slap. In all of her surveillance and research, she had never once considered Dr. Chen as anything but an adversary, never as a person with a life, struggles, a child. Throughout the day, Karen's recruitment mission yielded similar revelations. The paddles mentioned how Dr. Chen had diagnosed their daughter's migraines when 3 other doctors had missed it. The Garcias described how she helped their son get a medical school recommendation. Even Mrs. Peterson, who had violated the holiday decoration policy for years, raved about the doctor's homemade elderberry syrup that had cured her winter cough. With each conversation, Karen's certainty wavered. By late afternoon, she found herself sitting alone on a park bench, watching from a distance as Dr. Chen, her teenage son, and a dozen neighbors assembled a charming little structure that definitely violated Section 12.4 regarding unauthorized installations on community property. Yet no one seemed concerned. They were laughing, working together, building something. A community. Karen's phone rang. "Rita, are you sitting down?" Rita asked without preamble. Karen almost laughed. "Actually, yes. Walter's resigning from the board, moving to Arizona for his arthritis, and," Rita paused dramatically, "he's nominated Dr. Chen to fill his position." "That's impossible," Karen whispered. "She hasn't lived here a year yet." Emergency exception. "The vote's tomorrow night." After hanging up, Karen continued watching the library installation. Dr. Chen's son, a gangly teenager with his mother's smile, was carefully painting the words, "Take a book, leave a story" on the little door. Something about his concentrated expression reminded Karen of herself as a young girl, meticulously organizing her bookshelf by color and height. Before HOA bylaws and property values consumed her thoughts, Karen had been that passionate about things that actually mattered. Walking home, Karen found herself standing outside Dr. Chen's house. From the sidewalk, safely outside the no-contact perimeter, she studied the native garden with new eyes. It wasn't messy. It was alive. Butterflies and bees moved purposefully among the blooms. A small sign identified each plant species with both scientific and common names. It was beautiful. It was different. And suddenly, Karen wasn't sure why that had seemed so threatening. Karen spent a sleepless night pacing her bedroom, the weight of realization pressing on her chest. For years, she convinced herself that her rigid enforcement of HOA rules was about maintaining property values and community standards. But as dawn broke, casting soft light across her perfectly arranged throw pillows, she finally admitted the truth. It had always been about control. Control was predictable. Control was safe. And somewhere along the way, Karen had confused control with respect. When Dale found her at the kitchen table, still in her robe at 7 a.m., she was staring at the HOA president pin she always wore to meetings. "I'm stepping down," she said before he could speak. Dale froze with his coffee mug halfway to his lips. "What?" "From the HOA presidency. Effective immediately." She pushed a handwritten letter across the table. "I've already emailed the board." Dale sat down slowly. "Karen, I know things have been difficult, but are you sure?" "No," she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "I've been president for 7 years. It's who I am. But I don't think I've been very good at it lately." Dale reached across the table and took her hand. "You've always cared about this neighborhood. That's not a bad thing." "Caring isn't the problem," Karen said quietly. "It's how I showed it." By noon, Karen's phone was buzzing constantly with messages from shocked board members and neighbors. Rita arrived with a bottle of wine and wide eyes. "This is just temporary, right?" Rita asked, pouring generous glasses. "A strategic retreat?" Karen shook her head. "I need to step back completely. But what about the block party vote? What about Dr. Chen possibly joining the board? You're just giving up." The old Karen would have bristled at those words. Giving up was failure, and Karen Westfield didn't fail. But now she felt an unexpected lightness. "I'm not giving up, Rita. I'm choosing a different battle." After Rita left, Karen did something she hadn't done in years. She called her sister in Oregon, the free spirit who'd chosen a life far from homeowners associations and community standards. "Jenny, it's me. I think I need some perspective." 3 hours later, after a conversation that veered from tearful confessions to bursts of long-forgotten laughter, Karen had a plan. The next morning, she drove to the community center where the emergency board meeting would take place that evening. The no-contact order prevented her from attending in person if Dr. Chen would be there, but nothing stopped her from leaving something in the board's designated mailbox. Karen slipped in her official resignation letter, along with a second envelope. This one contained a typed note. "To the Maple Creek HOA Board. After reflection, I believe my leadership style has not evolved with our community's needs. While I stand by the importance of standards, I recognize that rigid enforcement without flexibility has created division rather than unity. I've taken the liberty of drafting proposed revisions to our bylaws, focusing particularly on environmentally sustainable landscaping options, community building installations, and a more collaborative violation resolution process. These recommendations come not as your president, but as your neighbor. Respectfully, Karen Westfield. Karen paused before adding a handwritten postscript. P.S. The native plant garden at 427 Maple Drive has attracted 17 species of butterflies this summer. Perhaps our standards should be measured in more than just property values. As she walked back to her car, Karen spotted Dr. Chen's son riding his bike through the parking lot. She averted her eyes quickly, mindful of the no-contact order, but not before noticing his dejected expression and the book that tumbled from his backpack. Karen hesitated. The order prevented contact with Dr. Chen, not her son, and a dropped book was just common courtesy. "Excuse me," she called, keeping her distance. "You dropped something." "You're Karen, aren't you?" the boy asked, retrieving his book, a dog-eared copy of The Little Prince. Karen's throat tightened. "How did you know?" He shrugged. "Mom has a lot of security camera footage of you." Heat rushed to Karen's face. Of course, he would know her as the package thief, the flyer-posting enemy. "I'm Ilya," he offered, surprising her with a tentative smile. "Mom says you're very passionate about rules." Karen couldn't help a startled laugh. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. Something in the boy's open expression broke through Karen's carefully constructed walls. "Your mom's probably right. I've been difficult. Mom says people who care that much about order usually just want to feel safe." Ilya fidgeted with his bike handlebars. "Like how I organize my rock collection by mineral content when I'm stressed about school." Karen blinked at this unexpectedly insightful comparison. "Your mom sounds very understanding." "She is," Elliot agreed. "That's why she's not really mad about the packages. She just doesn't like feeling watched all the time." The irony of Dr. Chen feeling surveilled wasn't lost on Karen. "I can understand that." After an awkward goodbye, Karen sat in her car, processing the interaction. She'd expected the Chen family to demonize her, yet here was this thoughtful boy casually psychoanalyzing her with remarkable accuracy. People who care that much about order usually just want to feel safe. Was that true? Had her zealous enforcement been a response to feeling threatened by change? That evening, Karen took a radical step. She deleted the Neighborhood Watch app from her phone and turned off notifications from the HOA email list. Instead, she pulled out gardening gloves that had been gathering dust and she'd hired a landscaping service years ago. The small plot behind her pristine patio had always been meticulously maintained, uniform shrubs and seasonal flowers in approved colors. Now she studied it with new eyes. What might grow here that could actually belong here, not just exist because a catalog or committee deemed it acceptable? The next morning, Karen drove to a nursery in the next town. Not the chain store where she usually purchased pre-approved plantings, but a small family operation specializing in native species. She felt like a spy in enemy territory, especially when the enthusiastic owner began explaining pollinator pathways. "I'm actually hoping to create a corridor," Karen said hesitantly, testing out unfamiliar terminology. "My neighbor has an established native garden. I thought perhaps mine could complement hers." The owner beamed. "Connectivity is exactly what these plants need. Let me show you what would extend her habitat." Karen returned home with a car full of weeds that cost considerably more than her usual landscaping choices. As she unloaded them, Mrs. Peterson appeared at the fence. Well, the older woman said with undisguised delight. "Miracles do happen." "It's just a little experiment," Karen said defensively. Mmm. Mrs. Peterson's knowing smile was infuriating. "You know, the board unanimously accepted your bylaw revision proposals last night. And Dr. Chen said the native gardening recommendations were particularly thoughtful." Karen nearly dropped the potted milkweed. She did. She also declined Walter's board position. Mrs. Peterson leaned closer, said she'd rather focus on building bridges than making rules, whatever that means. As Mrs. Peterson wandered off, Karen stared at her collection of plants. Building bridges. The metaphor wasn't subtle, but it resonated. For 7 years, she'd been building walls instead, separating compliant from non-compliant, acceptable from unacceptable, us from them. Over the next week, Karen threw herself into her garden transformation with the same intensity she'd once dedicated to enforcement. She researched native species late into the night, created meticulous planting diagrams, and found herself genuinely excited each morning to check on her seedlings' progress. When Dale commented on her newfound passion, Karen surprised herself by admitting, "I think I needed to create something instead of just evaluating everything." The Saturday before the block party, Karen was kneeling in her front yard, hands deep in soil, when a familiar SUV slowed near her driveway. Dr. Chen was behind the wheel, clearly deliberating whether to stop. Their eyes met briefly before the doctor drove on. Karen sat back on her heels, heart pounding. The encounter had lasted seconds, yet something significant had passed between them. Acknowledgement, perhaps. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. That evening, Karen composed a careful email to her lawyer inquiring about the process for requesting that the no-contact order be lifted. It was time to face Dr. Chen properly, not as HOA president, not as adversary, but as neighbor. As she hit send, Karen realized she was smiling. For the first time in months, she felt not just in control, but at peace.